Thank you, Carter. Yeah, we had a good evening last night. Came in, had a light practice. Proud again of the team effort we had on Saturday. We had some sore individuals. Yesterday, I bet Pitt had the same. That was a very physical contest. A lot of big collisions out there. But guys were in a good attitude. Still had a chance to correct some of the things that still need to be corrected going forward. This team can continue to play a lot better than it is, and I think they're aware of that. But that being said, you've got to celebrate your wins. They're hard to come by, and I'm proud of the effort and the attitude of the team and the way that we really played complementary football on Saturday. Virginia is always a challenge. When you think of a Bronco Mendenhall coach football team, you're going to think defense. Very multiple in their fronts and in their coverages. And for another week, we're going to be facing an uncertainty in terms of who the starting quarterback is. Where last week with Pitt, it didn't really change what they were going to do on offense. With what Virginia has shown, they do really change who they are offensively based off who their quarterback is. So it'll be a challenge for our defense in terms of their preparation and awareness during the game to see what we're going to get, because we really probably will not know until Saturday. Excited to be back in our stadium Saturday night, night game. Be our last home game here for a while because of the bye and a couple of away games. So looking forward to getting in front of a big crowd that we're allowed to have, and a rowdy crowd, and continue to protect our home field. And with that, I'll open up for questions.
Great, thanks, Coach. We'll start with Chris Stock from Inside the U. Chris, go ahead.
Manny, through 5 games this year, third downs and red zone defense and offense all have been improved from a year ago. Just what kind of emphasis did you guys place on that in the offseason? Also, what kind of impact do you think it's made on both sides of the ball through the 5 games?
Well, it certainly makes an impact in terms of winning, right? I mean, obviously it just and there's a lot of things that go into that in terms of red zone success on both sides. I mean, we certainly practice it. We do make a big point of emphasis on it. It's a big part of our Wednesday practice. But kicking game is a big deal too, right? Just even having, Jose Borregales, and it changes the way you can call plays on offense. It changes the confidence of the football team. And then defensively, we've prided ourselves on holding people to 50% touchdown percentage in the red zone. If you do that, you're generally going to be in the top 10 in the country. And so that has gotten better and better every week as we've gotten further into the 2020 season. So we love those stats here. We love those elements of the game because we know it wins, and it's been a team effort on both sides of the ball to improve where we were a year ago.
Great. Next, we'll go to David Furones from the Sun Sentinel. David, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. We got the latest depth chart, and at wide receiver, pretty much anyone can take a starting position. It's up for grabs, it seems. What's the message you're sending with that? And also, are there any of the younger receivers that you feel have impressed you that may carry some momentum into this competition you seem to be opening up?
Yeah, no. All we're really doing is changing. The emphasis on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday will matter in terms of who trots out there for the first play of the game, first play of the second half. As I mentioned I think on this call a week ago, the rotation itself, what we want is we want to be able to play a lot of guys. This is not about these guys can't do it and these guys can. We want more guys that feel like they can do it, and certainly the young players are improving and they are getting better. We had a couple of shots down the field with Keyshawn Smith in the game on Saturday. One, we just didn't get the ball to him, and one, it was a perfectly thrown pass. It was defensive pass interference. So just getting, whether it's Keyshawn, whether it's Redding, whether it's Restrepo, getting those guys more involved in the game. Jeremiah Payton has continued to develop. Obviously we missed him for the time that he was out. So getting all those guys, but that's not to say that, Harley had the big touchdown catch. We thought Mark Pope played very well on Saturday, played very hard. And so, hey, listen, we're trying to get more guys that we can play because that's ultimately makes the whole football team better.
Great. Next, we'll go to David Lake from 24/7. David, go ahead.
Coach, I want to ask you about Nesta Silvera. It seems like he's taken his game to another level this year. Is there a reason for that, or is it mainly just like he is older now and healthy, or is there stuff that you can see that he's definitely improved on in his game this year?
Yeah, David, I think it's a combination of all those things. I mean, certainly he's older, he's wiser, he's more mature. probably understands the defense, not just schematically, but technique-wise better. And I think he also knows now it's his time. I think like a lot of guys in that junior class, they're the upperclassmen now, and they're the ones that came into the season sitting around watching, being a part of, but just, 2 seasons that really weren't our standard. So his effort, I think more than anything, has been the most impressive thing. So you can see the hits on the quarterback, but we showed the entire team. There was a play in the red zone. They throw a little swing pass, and I think the running back is 1-on-1 on Sam Brooks maybe, and Nesta never. I mean, it is full speed pass rush, puts a foot in the ground, and runs and ends up put a pretty good lick of the guy out of bounds near our sideline. So those type of effort plays inspire the whole defense, and it really sets the tone for the defensive line position in general. And I think one of the things that's changed from a year ago is I think with the leadership of Nesta, Jalen, Quincy, some of those guys, we're straining a lot harder on our defensive line this year than we did a year ago. We did not play hard a year ago, but it is a strain this year, and they're seeing the results.
Nesta's speed and his ability to change direction at his size, does that make him unique? Is that I mean, it doesn't seem usual for a guy that size to be able to run like he does.
Yeah, no, he obviously, has great foot speed, and that's what you expect at Miami, right? That's kind of not just the big space hitting tackles. That's what's always made the U in the 4-3 defense. And, you see Jared Harrison Hunt sort of has that similar type of ability. When your big guys can run, that creates problems, in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I think that's definitely one of his skill sets, and he's always had an ability to make a play. He can finish a play in the backfield. Some guys can get back there and they just can't really finish, and Nesta's always been able to finish.
Let's go next to Gary Furman from Kane Sport. Gary, go ahead.
Hey, Manny, how are you? You referenced earlier today the balance in college football, how really anybody from 5 to 40 and beyond can beat anybody any week. And we're seeing a little bit of that also in the ACC, where you've got right now 6 of the teams in the top 25, and one of them got beat Saturday by a Florida State team that's not even getting votes in any polls right now. Why do you think that is? And why do you think that it's making it such a challenge year after year just to get through an ACC schedule without taking losses to teams that maybe people don't necessarily, on the face value of it, expect to beat other teams?
Well, I think number one, you kind of you actually gave the answer. It's what they expect on the face value. That's really the whole key. We have a league of good football teams, and I don't know that they're always valued equal to how good they are. And because it's a very competitive league and everybody plays everybody, it's hard to make it through unscathed. Look, it's real simple. You have to play your best every week, and that's easier said than done. That's really difficult. And if you play in a league where you don't have a just absolutely certified talent advantage over the other teams that you play, if you don't play your best, you're going to get beat. And I'm sure they would say the same could be true in other leagues. If you look at it almost like in the NFL. I mean, unless you're just a couple of the teams at the top, it is very difficult to be the same team week in and week out. And that's again, we got to continue to guard it, but that's where we have in our effort and our attitude and the way we've attacked every week. Our leadership has done a pretty good job to make sure that we've been the same team every week. Obviously, that was something that we could not say a year ago. It was you couldn't compare the team that played Florida in the opener to the team that finished the season, and that's what we had to own, starting myself. So we're not even halfway done. So we're not making any proclamations that we're this and we're that, but they understand the challenge, at least, the challenge of how hard it is to be your best every week and how hard it is to prepare, and the traps of saying, oh, well, look at how this team looked a week ago, therefore we shall do this. It just never works that way. And just because you make them alert of it doesn't mean you're still fighting human nature. But we message that every day in our program now.
Thank you.
Great. Next up, we'll go up to Richmond. Mike Barber with the Times-Dispatch. Mike, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask, you mentioned in your opening that when you think of UVA and Bronco, you think of defense. They gave up 6 plays of 30 yards or longer against Wake Forest. So what do you see from that defense that's made them a little bit big play prone this year?
Well, and Bronco knows that too, and he's referenced that, and obviously I'm sure that'll be a big point of emphasis in their practice this week. I know we've played them the last 2 years, and I don't think anybody's gotten to 20 points. I'm not sure if anybody's gotten to 17 points in this game over the last 2 years. So they've got a lot of pride in what they do. They do have a lot of experienced players in what they do. Wake Forest, again, is a team they've got an explosive offense. And what Wake Forest does puts a lot of pressure on your secondary, the way they kind of run the slow inside zone. They make it straight man everywhere, pretty much no matter what you're in. So again, I think sometimes we do have to give the other team credit, but I know that staff at Virginia, and have seen those guys work for too long to know that that won't be a major point of emphasis this week, and try to limit our ability to create explosive plays, because that's obviously something we have done well through the first half of the season.
And you mentioned the quarterback rotation and the jumble that is. I know it's just one game. Were you able to determine, and not that you would want to share it, but were you able to determine any kind of pattern in terms of who they like in certain situations, or is that still a mystery for you?
Yeah, it's a mystery. The sample size is too small, and as you know, when you go into a game with a game plan, you invariably don't even call all the stuff you would have in a certain package. So you just got to prepare for your rules, and kind of rule it out that no matter what they do, that you've got a guy in every gap, and then if the quarterback's a runner, then that creates an extra gap, and you've got to whip a block, or you got to get even another guy down there. So at the end of the day, there's not that many choices in what you can do. But our players will have to prepare for a lot of stuff this week.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll go to Manny Navarro from The Athletic. Manny, go ahead.
Hey, Manny, obviously, you guys had a limited spring and didn't get an opportunity to work with a lot of the younger guys, coming back for their second year and in this last recruiting class. But it feels like you're starting to get a lot more contributions to Corey Couch, Jared Harrison-Hunt, some of the freshmen at receiver. Curious as to how you see that progress coming along here at the middle of the season. And are we on the verge of maybe seeing some more freshmen and redshirt freshmen make bigger impacts as the season goes on?
Yeah, Manny. And I'm sure this is true at every college across the country, but that was the class that, to me, not having spring hurt the most. Your true freshmen, they're kind of new. They could have used it as well. We obviously remember we had a lot of mid-years, but that's the group that came in. And really, this is their time. 15 days. You got a whole month to go over, the fine details of what you're doing on offense and defense. And for that to be taken away, and then not even the 7-on-7 in the summer, when the players are out there coaching the players and all that type of stuff. So, yeah, it would make sense that there is as the year goes on, the younger section of your team should probably start to contribute more and more. As you mentioned with Harrison Hunt, and we certainly hope that continues to happen. And whether that's defensively, Jafari Harvey, I've got to mention Jafari. I thought Jafari was outstanding on Saturday. Another guy that's in that class, but whether it's getting our true freshmen or our redshirt freshmen or true sophomores more in the mix, Avery Huff had a great game on special teams. Tyreek Austin Cave, another really talented guy, and they just need at bats, because you just can't make up for what they missed in that time. And I think, and the same thing is true with the guys on offense, like we mentioned with JP and the young wideouts. So that's why you never stop developing your team. And that also answers the question we talked about earlier. Teams change as the year goes on, as players start to learn what they're doing more and more. So, hey, what they did back in September, remember in 2020, it seems like a normal year, but it's still all different. The preparation for the season and all that is a little bit unique. So I think getting a rhythm, and we can keep our roster intact as the year goes on, I think will help everybody.
Okay, next we'll go to Tim Reynolds from the Associated Press. Tim, go ahead.
Hey, Manny, I wanted to go back to have you expand on an answer a couple questions ago about the effectiveness of the leadership of this group. Specifically, did you learn a lot about your kids on Saturday? It wasn't a game that had that national buzz. You weren't, the game day darlings last week. This is a game where I know you cringe at the comparison to past years, but in past years, Miami struggles in that game. When the lights go out, Miami has struggled the past couple of years in that game. And your kids, Pitt was tough. It was a solid professional win all around. What did you learn about your group Saturday that you might not have known until then?
Yeah, well, to your point, Tim, we had to do it, and we talked about it, and we addressed it as the elephant in the room during the week, because we knew it was out there. But you can talk about it, and we had a good week of practice, but we've all heard that story before. You can have a good week of practice and not play well. And Pitt, it doesn't matter whether you're into it or not into it. It's going to be hard to beat Pitt with what they do defensively. And the moment for me was really in the third quarter. And that's when we had thrown the pick that, got run down to the 1 yard line, and they scored. And I believe we had the ball in offense, and I believe we punted again. And there it is. It's in the balance. It's like 5 points. Momentum is definitely on Pitt's side. Kind of dead in the stadium, and our guys, like we were in the defense, I was getting ready to take the field. Our guys were excited to play, and actually I was ironic. It was Quincy Rochet. I thought Quincy, for as good of his play was on the field, what he did on our sideline, and he wasn't alone, but just to signal him out was unbelievable. I mean, just like, let's go. This is our chance. Let's do it. Blah blah blah. And then he's the one that ends up. Him and Jalen end up on the strip sack, and that was really the play. Then bang, we get the touchdown. And really from that point on, we kind of had him at arm's length. Never comfortable, but we were able to see it out from there. So very proud of the guys. They did something that is hard to do, and we celebrated that yesterday because they should feel the reward of that. But now here comes another one. Similar type vein, right? It's same thing. We're not the the marquee matchup, but it doesn't matter. It is a football game that demands your best, and we know Virginia will bring their best, and we have to match what they bring.
Manny, one quick follow. You mentioned Quincy on the sideline, and the energy from your sideline has been great forever. It seems like when you're playing in empty stadiums or largely empty stadiums, how important is that you've got 60 or 70 kids manufacturing enough energy to fill the place of 60,000, it seems like?
It is so important this year, Tim. It is so magnified. And it's not the visible positive energy that you might see. It's avoiding the negative energy. And I think that's been an issue in the past of having, the term, the energy vampires on your sideline. Those guys are magnified in 2020 because you don't have just the chaos of the full stadium. So to have a sideline, and I mentioned this coming after UAB game, we have had really good sidelines. Even the Clemson game, you're getting your butt kicked, but there's not pouting, and there's not guys, getting after guys. I mean, there's just none of that in a real. And I think it's where De'Eric helps a lot, and just the way that our offense and defense support each other, and that everybody supports the special teams units when they're out there. I think that's been a real positive as well.
All right, got time for a couple more. We'll go to David Wilson from the Herald. David, go ahead.
Hey, Manny. I want to ask you about a couple of your defensive linemen. First, kind of following up on Quincy Rochet. It kind of feels like sometimes he was the forgotten man a little bit early on because we were talking so much about Jalen and his story coming back. Quincy obviously came in. You knew he was going to be really good, I'm sure. Has he been pretty much what you expected or exceeded your expectations in certain areas? And then Jared Harrison-Hunt, 3 sacks already for him. I know he's a guy who was mostly a basketball player in high school. Just how impressive has his kind of rapid development been, and how does that basketball background maybe help him a little bit on the field?
Yeah, we'll start with Jared. I think the basketball part of it is his foot speed, his quickness, his change of direction. For what you have inside, when you talk about a part of the football field where you got defensive tackles and guards, he's so much more athletic than anybody else that lines up in there. Now, the downside of basketball is that there's not a lot of guys when they double team you in basketball, it's a very different thing than getting double teamed in football, right? I mean, you got 600 to 650 pounds of human, pushing on you. So you've got to have a toughness. And Jared's done a great job with David Feely in our strength program to really bulk up and get strong. But he's tough and he's not afraid. He can hang in there and he can hold point if it's that type of game as well. Certainly his athleticism on a drop back pass game like we had on Saturday, is a major plus for him. So I do think and that's what we saw in high school, just the ability to move around on a basketball court. I mean, when you're starting at Christ the King, in that league in New York, you can play ball. And then in terms of Quincy, again, I love the way that he's taken the ownership of the team. I think it's really helped. We always knew he was a really, really good player. And to the point you mentioned, it's easy to see Jalen, obviously because of his size. It's like when we had Rousseau. Quincy is just so instinctive on the field, and his ability to slip blocks and beat tackles and understand where the ball is. I think that's really serves him well. But he's also tried week in and week out to play more and more in the framework of the defense. Sometimes you got to erase some habits when you've been doing something for 3 years and come in. We've had this in the past with some of our grad transfers. So his willingness to do that, I think, has been really encouraging as well.
Next up, we'll go to Daryl Streeter. Daryl, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, how you doing? Coach, what's your evaluation on Brooks and Flagg with their additional snaps they've been receiving?
Yeah, I think, I mean, Corey just is so instinctively sound. You know, he has a great feel for the position, a great feel for understanding gaps, playing blocks, very intelligent, can get everybody lined up because our middle linebackers got to make all the calls. He's the quarterback of our defense. And so his ability to do all that and manage all that, I think it puts everybody else at ease when he's out there. And then he can run and tackle, you know, which is what it's about. Sam, you know, obviously we were excited about Sam all offseason. Sam's, you know, had a foot injury somewhere during training camp. Sam just had a thing he had to get over where probably for about a span of 3 to 4 weeks, he just really wasn't 100%, you know, but certainly Sam picks up the speed that we have at our linebacker position, which we thought we were going to try to get a little bit faster this year. And we're trending in that direction. So it's been fun to see Sam and Corey sort of settle in there and getting a bunch of snaps in the rotation. And I think that as the year goes on, I think we're always looking for what the best rotation is. And that will all come down to the development of not just those 4 guys, but, you know, Wayman Steed, and I mentioned Huff and Austin Cave. Really, for the first time, we feel like in a long time, we've got really, really good competition at inside linebacker and some really good guys that are also, man, we wish they had spring ball, but are really going to be good in the future as well.
Okay, we'll wrap up with Tom D'Angelo from the Palm Beach Post. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Manny. Manny, kind of piggybacking on Tim's question, but moving it forward, you've mentioned we know last year how things went in the wrong direction from the first game to the last game. So having gone through that, you and the players, will it make it easier to prevent it, to see the signs? Not that you expect it, but just, to pick up on things, having seen what they went through and having those players have experienced that last year.
I think we can't predict what's going to happen, but what I would tell you is we're much more intentional in understanding the difficulty in winning a football game against anybody, and giving every opponent that we play the proper respect inside this building that they deserve. It's not made up. This is not like, every team is the greatest team of all time. We show every week that there is an avenue to our defeat through this team's strengths. And if we don't take those things away, and if we don't play at our best and don't play to our strengths, we'll get beat. And you get a weekly show of that around the country. So that doesn't mean that we're going to play our best every week, because it's very hard to be the same team 11 and 12 weeks in a row. But what I will tell you is that our players understand it and they respect it more, that it was just crucial that inside the building, we never said, we just don't believe that winning is easy, and I think that respect for that has been something that they've been able to carry out through the first month of the season.